Hey there, this is my last video for the day on a topic that not just this last week, but pretty much any time I get into a discussion with an atheist, God in the Old Testament is brought up, um, and the argument is supposed to be that God does all these horrible things in the Old Testament, so how can you believe in a God like that? And there are two parts to this video. The first part is going to be responding to those atheists. The second is going to be responding to Christians who struggle with that, because there is an element that Christians don't 100% understand in the Old Testament of how it seems like God is different in the Old Testament with the severity of punishments and things that He did in the Old Testament with Him in the New Testament. It's not a contradiction, but it is something that I'm going to be bringing up in part two. But part one is just responding to the atheist idea of God in the Old Testament being immoral or doing something wrong and how He acted. So in responding to that, quite frankly, the atheist isn't even qualified to be asking that question, because in asking the question, or not asking the question, but making the statement that God has done immoral things, is to skip two steps that atheists cannot answer, and in all my discussions with them have never given a good answer for these two ideas. The second of those, which is the step that precedes making moral judgments about God, is first of all defining what morality is. That's something that atheists can't do, because at the core of atheism is this constant idea that morals are relative. Um, and if that really is true, every moral is relative. It's pretty straightforward. If that's really the case, you can't make any argument that there's some definite, constant idea of good that can be applied to the Old Testament or be applied to any human being. If morality is relative to what each of us think, then what does it even matter? We can each have our own ideas and opinions about morality, and with absolutely no way to determine which one is right and which one isn't. Um, And the fact of the matter is, if we are the source of what good and evil really means, like us, it's imperfect and finite. We aren't perfect beings, and we don't last forever. So how could an idea of good or evil that we come up with be this constant, perfect, everlasting thing? It's not. It would sway with time and deteriorate, just like we do. So atheism can't even offer any worthwhile definition of morality or what good is in the first place. So how do you think, how in the world could atheists be qualified to even answer or charge God or anyone with doing something immoral or wrong? And the step before that precedes that is about life's worth and value. How do atheists attribute any real worth or value to life? I mean, do we as human beings decide what our own value is? I would say no more than gold or some coin would decide its own worth or value, because the created thing doesn't decide how much it's worth. Now we have brains and we can think and reason and ask the question, why do we have worth? But that doesn't mean that we're the source or we determine our own worth. We're the created thing, and yes, even if you hold to the idea that evolution is the source of our creation, we were created, and we don't determine what our value is. Richard Dawkins, I've seen in an interview, thinks it's plausible that it makes sense that we could have been created, but it would be by an alien or some entity off in the distance, and that's supposed to be a lot more plausible than God actually doing it. Even though we have evidence, billions of people who say and believe that God really exists, we have that kind of evidence, but that evidence doesn't have as much value as to Richard Dawkins, or as much credibility as the chance that maybe somewhere out there some entity came to Earth and started the building blocks of life. It's absurd, and it's just an idea to try to run away from God. It's not to actually offer any answers to life, and it's so vividly clear in some of these responses you get from atheists. But we don't determine our own value, and life doesn't have any worth in the first place in an atheistic framework, because unless you actually really go for that idea that somewhere out there there's an alien or some being that allowed us to begin to be created, then you don't believe in any entity. Um, you believe 100% that we are the product of chance, and we're not here by any design. Life is just a happy accident. So how through that do you really determine or make the argument that we have value, intrinsic value as human beings? And so, I mean, right there, you you can't make any arguments about morality unless you first answer those two steps, and you can't skip them. You actually have to have good answers for those. And in all the conversations that I've had with atheists, I never get a good answer. I get the answer that, well, my morals are intact. Is something that someone said this last week, that my morals are intact, and that's well and good, but your morals being intact doesn't mean anything, because with all the people here on earth, eventually your morals are going to clash with someone else's morals. And how, in that situation, do you determine which one is right? Because both of them can't be right. Um, Morals are not relative. If they were, that would actually be a reality. But it meets morals butt heads. So how in that do you determine if we are the source of morality, and we have differing views on morality, then both situations, if someone had a view that murder was wrong, and someone had a view that, whatever, we only live once, let's do whatever the heck we want to, if those clash, which one's right? In atheism, both of them are right, which is a contradiction. It violates the law of non-contradiction, and is worthless. Atheism it doesn't offer any real answers. Like I said, it's simply just a way to run away from the reality of God, maybe because people feel hurt by God, or feel like He's not really there. He is, but running away from it doesn't do anything for you. Ravi Zacharias made the statement that atheists are a lot better at smelling bad eggs or rotten eggs than laying any good ones, and it's true. Uh, there's no offer of a better answer to life. There's no meaning or purpose given in atheism that gives us the desire to even pursue existing. Um, we're just kind of here, and we don't have any real reason for being here in atheism. And I'm not going to trade my faith that gives me those answers to life's biggest questions, and even gives me difficult questions that I have to answer about, like God in the Old Testament, which I'll answer in this next video for believers. But it's not worth the trade to give that up for atheism that thinks that it offers reason and logic. But even in that, reason and logic are constant, perfect, everlasting traits. I mean, reason can't be altered, or it's not reason. Common sense can be altered, or it's not common sense. And everything points so clearly to an eternal perspective, and atheism doesn't offer anything any better, and in fact it offers much less than the Judeo-Christian worldview does. So that would be my answer. I mean, just simply, atheists are not qualified to answer the question, because they skip the first two steps that they need to answer before inferring or invoking any moral standard on God or anyone else. So that's how I'd answer that. And part two will just be specifically talking to Christians about how we deal with the reality of God in the Old Testament seeming to be different than He is in the New. But thank you for watching, and hope it opened the open the doors for some of you to understand the reality of what morality is and of what our life's value really is and how that has to be set up before you can mention anything about morals or applying them to other people. So thank you for watching.